How good is this? This is the Bay Area, encompassing the cities of San Francisco, Oakland, and San Jose, to name a few. Unknown to many, there is a surprisingly good amount of climbing here. It's a cyclist playground, with hills and mountains stretching in and around the dense urban metropolis. According to the PJAM cycling website, there are 151 documented climbs in the entire Bay Area. And in this series, we'll aim to tackle all of them, one by one, and at the end of the day, take you through what it's like and rank them based on difficulty and how beautiful. Well, good morning, and welcome to this classic climb in the Bay Area. It is, of course, Mount Tam. And there are a number of ways to do this climb. Today, we'll be doing the Mill Valley version, and we get started in the redwoods right by the town center. Alrighty folks, it's Mount Tam time, our first time up this mountain, and it's the Mill Valley variation. This variation is number 33 on the list, so we're starting to make our way up in the difficulty ratings. You can see there from the profile there's a middle section that sort of flattens out as we get to the ridge top. That provides a nice respite after that first steep part. It's generally only 4.7 average grade, but it's a really tough climb in the end of the day. Just under 10 miles and a lot of feet elevation gain, just short of 2,500 one. It's a good one, let's get into it. And I'm extremely familiar with this climb. It's one of my favorites here in the Bay Area. It has a bunch of really distinct markers and checkpoints along the way that help you identify how far you've gone, how much is further, and you can sort of get a feeling based on that, on how you're feeling for the day. I'll point this out as we go along. At this stage of the climb, you are right at the base of the mountain. It towers up above you, and it looms in the distance of what's to come. Now this first part, as we wind through the little residential neighborhood in the hills, is quite steep. It's a single lane road, and you do need to watch out for cars coming down. Mostly they'll be coming downhill rather than up, and as long as you stay on the right, there's a few hidden corners, but for the most part, it's quiet. It's very residential. People are not coming through here often, and they watch for cyclists. I'll tell you what, there are some real lovely homes around here, nestled up amongst the hills. Their driveways are like little terraces that extend off the road and supported above the house. It's very impressive construction, but just beautiful. It's about a half mile in, that single lane road winding through the redwoods ends, and you turn right onto a 2-lane, slightly busier road. And we start making our way up towards Four Corners. That will be our next mile marker. Look at those colours behind me. The sun is poking through the clouds and creating these pinks, light greys, blues. It's quite pretty. And on this morning, there's a real marine layer that developed early in the morning, and it has settled in. But I'm hoping as we go along this climb, it will start to fade away, and as we get higher and higher, the views will reveal themselves. We've gained elevation fast. There's some views of down the bay, back towards the Golden Gate Bridge. And I will say, this stretch of road has always felt the most precarious. With cars, there's not much of a shoulder as you can see, so take care. But a lot of cars are good to give you amount of space. It's just the 1 in 100 that kind of don't and get a bit frisky. But this is really the only section that I've ever felt weary. I just love these subtle colours coming through. It's good signs for what's above. Okay, one of the bigger checkpoints at the start of the climb here is Four Corners.
Now I've reached the part which I like to call the ridge line. It is essentially bang on a ridge line above Mill Valley. One side is out towards the ocean, the other sides are the houses that trickle down the hill. And we'll ride along this ridge line for about a mile, and it's sort of undulating up and down until we get back into the woods. Alright, we're climbing up into some of that marine layer. It's still pretty thick here, but I'm confident it will go away on the other side of the on the other side. Can you see that ridge line beyond? We'll eventually be up there, all the way up to the observatory. And this is that ridge I was talking about. Out beyond there is the ocean. Probably can't see with the marine layer fog. You feel like you're up in the clouds, floating through, with the busyness of the city below just fading away. It's so pretty. Can you see this? Look at the fog rolling over the hills down at the valley, more coming off the ridgeline we were just in, and the sun baking that distant ridgeline. Ah, how good is this? Okay, back there was the next checkpoint. Once you pass the mountain in, you're done with the ridge line and we move back into the woods. This is Mount Tam State Park, and the marine fog is starting to really fade away. The way the morning sun bakes these redwoods, reflecting off the green, the brown bark. Oh, it's lovely. I honestly wasn't sure about this morning. When I saw the forecast, I thought, ooh, it could be great all the way up. But no, rewarded with sticking through it and heading on forward. And this section is actually quite flat, so it's quite wonderful to spin the legs through, recover after the first half of the climb, and get ready for the latter half. Alrighty, here we go. The climbing gets started again. Legs pushing, heart pumping, up and up we go. In it for the climb. Okay, here we go, the next checkpoint. The main parking lot for the state park off to the left. We're going to take a right. Okay, so we passed by that parking lot, and what it essentially was crossing through the ridge to the other side of Mount Tam, and now we're on the back side, or we're facing away from the city of San Francisco and up towards the coast. And so views off to my left here behind me will all be out towards the ocean and up towards Sonoma, Bodega Bay, Point Reyes, places like that. And I find this part of the climb the hardest. After that right turn off the major road into the state park towards the peak, you're not quite in the final section yet, so you can't get any joyous relief, as you know there's still a bulk of climbing to go, and it is steep and sort of hidden away inside the forest. The roads on this section have also seen way better days. Look at this, you come around this turn here, it's my favorite one, and you're above the world. There's nothing else around. How good is that? You can see there the road that we've just climbed up. Another reminder of how high we're getting. Okay, this is our final checkpoint, Rock Spring parking lot. There's a turn-off for Alpine Dam, where we take a right towards the top, the last ascent. Alright, the Garmin unit's saying we've climbed 2,500 feet. I think a little less, because I did climb up the Golden Gate Bridge this morning, but nonetheless, some serious feet elevation gain now. And this final ascent on a hot day is a real slog. But on today, it's cooler, and so it should be a little bit easier. But you'll see when we come do this during the summer for some of the other climbs, it gets steamy up here with very little shade. So just remember to reserve some of the fluids for this last portion when you're climbing this during the summer. You can see these portions ahead are those areas of complete exposure during the summer where it can get really hot. It just makes that last part just a little bit trickier. Keep on pushing. Pumping the legs, pumping the heart. Good vibes only. Let's go. Alrighty, one part of warning here. You're going to see the observatory ahead, and at that moment, it's going to take a right up a really steep part, and there's a false peak at the top. There is more to come, so don't get too excited. But watch out, it gets steep right below the observatory. Okay, here's the final climb up to the East Peak. One last push, one last go of the legs. Here we go. What a morning it's been. There we go, top of Mount Tam, the Mill Valley route. Plenty more variations to do, but the first time in this series to the top of this staple of a peak here in the Bay Area. If you're looking for elevation gain, looking for views, a ride through the redwoods that gets to a peak, this is what you want, and you can find it just here north of the Golden Gate Bridge. And just look at some of these views out here. On a day like this, the marine frog covering it, you feel like you're floating on top of the world, and it is a fantastic reward for putting in the effort and climbing almost 2,600 feet of elevation gain straight from sea level to the peak up here. It is crystal clear all the way out there. Some days you're going to get views of the city, the Golden Gate Bridge, and the coastline back south. But other days like this, like I said, the marine fog, you're just floating above the world. Wonderful. At the top, you'll find some restrooms, a place to fill up with water. There's also a ranger station if you ever get into any trouble. So there's quite a few facilities once you make it to the top. They're all over at the East Peak if you do need it and you make it here. There are 3 peaks, the East, the Main, and the West Peak. And the East Peak is where you're going to find all those facilities. Good to know when you get to the top of this peak, there are things available where you can refill with water. That's especially important when it comes to summer. All right, I'm going to take in these views a little bit, get a bit of snacks, get a bit of water, and then mosey on down through the hill on the way home.
Alrighty, up Mount Tam for the first time in this challenge. Let's see how it stacks up. In terms of difficulty, I'm putting it at a 7.2 out of 10, and that actually puts it at the top of the list so far. It beats out Empire Grade from last week, which only had a 6.8. It's not the toughest climb in the world, but it really deserves some respect. It's one of the big 4 mountains in the Bay Area, and there's a lot of different variations on routes to make it to the top, so we'll see over time how this Mill Valley stacks up compared to the other routes. But in terms of it, I'm putting 7.2 out of 10 for difficulty rating. It's a really tough one. The average grading is not that hard, but there are some steep parts, and especially during the summer when you're in that top third, it is pretty brutal after the length you've been climbing for just under 10 miles. In terms of beauty, I'm putting it in number 2 slot. It's 8.1 out of 10. It's a little lower than the Twins Peak. It's a really beautiful climb, don't get me wrong. But I do love to see the city, and the Twins Peak, when you can be that close to the downtown area and look over the bay and see Oakland, is still really pretty. Maybe this will stack up pretty well if we do the other variations and on a clear day and the marine fog isn't there. But in terms of climbs and the views you get at the top, pretty amazing when you sit above those clouds. Alright, thanks for watching this week's episode. Catch you next time. Bye.